Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Ives number CL12 in a US3 finish. A CL12 is a touch latch or a push latch. It is the larger of the two that are offered by this manufacturer. The CL11 is the smaller version. And years ago, they used to be known as the AA and the BB when they were branded under the Glenn Johnson name. And then, for whatever reason, probably marketing purposes, they were moved over into Ives. So they've been known as Ives for the last, since the early 2000s. It's a touch latch that is used generally on heavier doors when you compare it against a light door that might be like a door that literally weighs 4 pounds on your entertainment center, a little magnetic touch latch. Well, this isn't magnetic at all. It's mechanical and is known to work in applications where I've literally seen people install this on a 3080 solid core wood door that is reasonably going to weigh 110 pounds. I have seen it installed with and without the CL14 auxiliary pusher, which is a spring-loaded cylindrical device that mounts to the door that literally is just a round piece of architectural metal. Loaded behind it is a spring that literally helps keep the door pushed out so that when you push on the door, it gives you additional force so that it assists in a heavier door operation by not overcoming the capabilities of the CL12. Ives would certainly never recommend that you install it on such a heavy door. I have seen these installed on medicine cabinet doors. I've even seen them installed on hidden bookcase doors as well. I would think that you're going to reasonably be in the, 20, 30, 50 pound range. You can always add the auxiliary pusher later should you find that your operation of the door is a bit soft. You can certainly add the pusher, but if it's a heavier door, I would order one immediately. If you've got a much smaller door, 10 pound range, I'd order the CL11. But this is it. When you order it, you're going to get the strike. You're going to get the body. You're going to get this metal template and then screws. This is shown in the US3 polished brass finish, and it's available in US10 satin bronze, US4 satin brass, US3 polished brass, US2060 satin chrome. Okay, that's what this is. So let's take a visual tour of the item. Here's the business end. Here's the body of the unit. You can install this on a left-hand reverse door, on a right-hand reverse door. Doesn't really matter how you install it. This is obviously the exposed side. You're going to see this when you open the door every single time, or this. Okay. Dimensional properties. They say that the body's 2 1/4 tall, and we're going to go through the information down below in the extended description. 1 1/4 wide, 9/16 thick. Okay, the projection of the pusher that is inherent in the body looks like it's about 7/16 or so. You will then get the strike, which I believe the installation instruction calls something else. Latch hook, they call it. Made of solid brass. That is for sure cast brass in a polished finish. And I'm going to say that this finish, that this plate on the front is also made of solid brass, because you can tell when you see brass enough, you can tell the difference between a polished piece of material that's made of brass and one that's been plated. This is certainly solid brass. It has a more elegant look to it. Your latch hook, or your strike, that's what that looks like. Telltale signs of that casting process are certainly on the back. It also has a lacquer on it. The US3 means polished brass. That doesn't tell us the base material of the item, whereas if they called it 605, that would tell us that it was made of solid brass. This would be more properly called 605, but they probably use the less specific, older information because it's not all solid brass. It's just simply the bottom line on that. Okay. Now the dimensional properties on that latch hook, they have it at 5/8, or strike, they have it 5/8 wide. That's closer to 11/16 naturally. 1 13/16 high. That looks good, approximately, with a 9/16 projection. Yeah, I'd say you'd be spot on with that. You're going to get a metal template, and the metal template's not super important, except that it's outrageously important. There are two things that are there's two things that are important. One of those things is incredibly important. The other is outrageously important that you adhere to. And let's take a look at that. Before we get to super important and incredibly important, let's go through the rest. Invisible latch is ideal for installations where no visible latch is desired. Sure, you want to be able to push the door open, you don't want to see any of that hardware, or maybe that's just inherently the nature of a touch latch. They're installed on the opposite side of acting the door. You generally don't see them. Unit can be installed at top, bottom, or side of door. Kind of. I would disagree with that in lots of instances. If you've got a tiny little door, not a lot of weight, probably not going to matter so much. But if you are installing this on a large door, or I just had a conversation with a client a week ago about putting it on a drawer. So literally taking the installation and not putting it like this, let's put it like this. And my argument on that is I don't see why it wouldn't work. If you've got good quality ball bearing slides, there'll be no vertical movement at all. This should work like hand in glove every single time as a drawer. And in fact, I bet it would be quite elegant as a way to keep a drawer in place. I've also had customers want to doors in the entry foyer of a restaurant, want their doors because behind these doors they have things, back of house type equipment, equipment that might run security cameras, I think it was, might be supplies, whatever it was. Well, they had these 9-foot tall doors and wanted to have touch latches. The problem is there were 3 of them together and there were no jam posts, meaning they were hung on center hung pivots, which meant they had to stick them up all the way at the top of the door. And my argument, where I'm going to push at 40 inch from the floor, 4 foot from the floor, there'll be substantial flex in the door that I'm not going to get the top of the door to reliably depress with 27 pounds of pressure pushing against the door. I'm not going to be able to get that unlatched. So I had argued that the client not use this hardware in that way because I don't think it's going to work. If you took that same 3090 door and put it right up to where you're going to be pushing, probably going to be okay. At least in my experience on an 8-foot door, I've seen it personally. And the first time I saw it back in 1812, I remarked to myself, that is way beyond what the manufacturer intended that to be installed on. And I've seen it in other instances. So, can be mortised into the stop or surface mounted onto the stop. We'll talk about that in a moment when we get to the template. Recommended for use on larger panels or regular size doors. So they're literally saying regular size doors. I think what they're really meaning is a 3068. A residential size door where you're never going to get larger than that. So while they're not giving us a weight of a door, they are telling us regular size doors. And you slap the auxiliary pusher onto it. And that's why I've seen it installed out in the wild successfully. Operation is simple. Latching is accomplished by a slight push. To unlatch the door, a harder push releases the door and pushes the door out. So what they're saying is to get the door open, you've got to push on it intentionally. You're not just going to be leaning against it and have the door open on you. You've got to push it, I would say. Brass and plastic construction, indeed, applies 27 pounds of force to the door, which means you can't have any flex, and you've got to push substantially to get it to move. And it is the non-ferrous part, well, at least the metal part, the architectural metal part, is made of brass. There is a link to the product brochure. Let's tackle that first. That hopefully will show us, yeah, it does, all the sister products to the CL12. Your CL11, which is about half of the push force of the CL12. Smaller doors, They don't give us a weight rating. Then the pusher. You've got that tube. I had said a piece of metal. It's actually a piece of plastic that will aid in the operation where hinges or surrounding conditions prevent smooth operation of doors. Applies 10 additional pounds of pressure to the door. I would say in the aspect of flexing the door that it would actually work to your disadvantage, but you might need more force on the door to get it to activate reliably, or to get it to not falsely be operated. You don't want to just touch the door and have it latch open. Now, installation instructions. There are actually 2 installation instructions that are with or uploaded below. And I can detect no dimensional differences between them, although I've not looked at every dimension. I have looked at the one dimension that's incredibly crucial. In that regard, they are the same, even though the drawing is a bit different. Yeah, it is. Okay, so the bottom line is this. If you have the luxury, open up both of those documents, the Glenn Johnson version, back when they were called AA and BB. AA was the small, BB was the large. They turned AA into CL11. They turned BB into CL12. And I never knew that it was an AP2, but the AP2 has been turned into a CL14 pusher. Okay. What's important, what's paramount, is that you observe the dimension of 3/16 of an inch that the door must be able to travel in. That is not the dimension from the face of the door to the face of the push latch body necessarily, although it could be. And it's not necessarily the dimension from the face of the door to the face of the stop, if there is a stop involved, even though it's drawn that way. Under operation instructions on the Ingersoll Rand version, step B, to release, push door against stop and release. Door must be able to be pushed in 3/16. Okay, so that is the most important thing. And people call and say, I just installed the CL12 and I can't get it open. I can't push it in far enough. And I think the confusion comes in from the perspective of, oh, give me 3/16 of an inch from the face of the door to the face of the stop. What you need to make sure is that you do not have any obstacle in front of the door that does not permit you a 3/16 travel. You must have a 3/16 travel. If you have that 3080 wood door I had mentioned earlier, the dimension from the face of the door to the face of the stop when the door is in the closed position may or may not be 3/16, and on paper it really isn't 3/16. And what I'm driving at in that scenario is, because hollow metal and architectural wood doors are more familiar to me than, what a margin would be on a residential wood frame. If you had a rabbet of 1 15/16 on that steel frame for an 1 3/4 door, 1.9375, and you knew that you had a 3/32 inset from the face of the door, from the face of the frame to where the door sits into it, and then you deducted your door thickness of 1 3/4, you would only have a 0.09375, 3/32 of an inch, distance from the face of the door when the door is at the 0 degree to the face of the stop. Not good enough. You need to double that. So the point of the matter is, where that door rests, you need to be able to make sure that I can push it in 3/16. That's the crucial thing. You have to make sure that you've got that margin. So what that means is simply, if you're installing this unit onto an application that does not have a stop, you can position it so that you can move it to the point where it's going to go 3/16. If you are installing it onto an item that has a stop, you need to make sure that you position the latch accordingly so that the door can move 3/16. Meaning your stop of your frame cannot inhibit you from moving that far. So the door position, the door needs to be created so that, in my math earlier, if I had a 1 15/16 of an inch rabbet and I had a 3/32 inset, just bear with me, it'll be worth the time, hopefully. It is for me. In our frame, if we had a 1 15/16 of an inch rabbet, we had an 1 3/8 door, and if we had a 3/32 inset from the face of the frame to the face of the door, that should leave us with 3/32 here. You need to build your unit so that you've got 3/16 space, not 3/32. Okay? So where you're going to position your hinge, you need to push that out so that you've got more room from the face of the door to the face of your stop. Okay, so you would have to change the back set of the hinge on that steel frame by giving it an additional 3/32, or also giving it 0 inset, where you are then flush with the face of the frame. Okay, so that would all work. You're not going to use these latches in a hollow metal door and frame application or a wood door and steel frame application. I use this as an example to illustrate the fact that you've got to make sure that you've got 3/16 of an inch movement there. That's paramount. Without that, it's not going to work. You're probably going to get it pushed in and latched possibly, and you're not going to be able to push it in far enough to get it to release. And people have had literally to break the latch off the door to be able to get in. Okay, so that's job one with this. That's what you have to make sure of. Now they've got this fancy template, and the fancy template is cool because it does the work of permitting you to locate these two holes, or these two holes, in relationship to the face of the unit, and according to the drawing, and we are sure hoping that it's accurate, that the tangs are pointed out. They're not straight down. So when you close the door, you'll mark the face of the door with where you are then going to have your positioning for the two holes, and you're off to the races. Okay? You get the concept, I hope, of how that's supposed to look. Okay? That's the other important thing, that the placement of the hook latch or strike needs to be right spot on. Let's review the installation instructions, and by all means, the order that just came in had these really old instructions. They're old only in the sense that they were published 20 years ago. They're not outdated in terms of being inaccurate, because they are certainly accurate. The CL12, it gives us dimensional properties of everything. Great, not a problem. In the upper right-hand corner, really nothing to take note of there. It's just giving us dimensions. We've covered that stuff. The metal template reference is also there, and it also refers to as dimension X. And dimension X is the elegant way to say what I had tried to say in 5 minutes. That the dimension X, from the face, the exterior face of the door to the face of the stop, or the face of the latch itself, or both, is door thickness plus 3/16. Okay? They show that the body is kicked back in that dimension, and I imagine that they do that only to permit room to get their dimension line in there. because a setback of the body from the face of the stop is not defined anywhere, and in fact can be the same. And it would be the same. You just have to make sure your door can move 3/16. So the X dimension is door thickness plus 3/16, not anything to be concerned with there. Once you get the body positioned in relationship to achieving 3/16, you might need it. You might need the thing to stand proud of the face of the stop. Maybe for some reason you've got a really huge margin from the face of the door to the face of the stop when you're in the 0-degree position, and you can't flush your touch latch body to the face of the stop because it's 5/16. It's too much. So whatever that is what you'll have to create. Once you get that installed, you'll place the template onto the face of the body, and then again, bring your door, make contact with the 2 points. You'll have your holes located, pre-drill, attach, and you should be in a really good position. Installation instructions. Install latch case. 3/16 clearance between door and stop is necessary to ensure preparation of latch. Remove screws from latch and attach metal template as shown for locating hook screws. Be sure metal prongs of template point away from the latch, as it's referred to. Close door gently against the prongs, marking locations for the screws for the hook. Remove the plate. Install the hook on the door. Reinstall the latch because you've had to remove it, because you've had to install the template. Screws come out, template comes off, latch goes back on. And then the most important thing they're saying is operation instructions. To lock, push door back to flush position. To release, push door against stop and release. Door must be able to be pushed in 3/16. And then your CL14 and dimensional properties are there as well. Okay, and that's really it. I've had people call and can't get the door open because I think what they were doing was, I am sure what they were doing was kind of looking at the dimension of the face of the latch body and saying to themselves, yes, gosh, it looks like it's moved in a lot. And they've done so accordingly, got it latched, and then couldn't get it unlatched. And like I've said, I've seen this installed in lots of applications. I've had people tell me, or ask me, hey, can I install it here? Hey, can I install it here? My answer is, yeah, probably, because I've heard it successfully installed in so many applications. And the only time, and even in that secret bookshelf, someone built a full-size bookshelf, and the only time that it didn't work is when they didn't position it correctly. They broke it off, they bought a new one, repositioned it, and it worked. So that's how that goes. I expect this touch latch has been something that has existed for several decades, and I expect that it will continue to exist as a viable piece of hardware. It's elegant, it's robust. In the world of touch latches, there must be scores of options, not only of domestic manufacturers, but of Asian manufacturers, of European manufacturers, and of, when I said Asian, I meant imported low-cost items. But then there are also high-quality Asian origin touch latches as well, where they are rated in terms of pounds of force, and that's neat as well. So Ives has one option, really in two sizes. If you need help with other touch latch applications, let us know. Obviously for entertainment centers, unusual applications as well, where you need to have something that is an atypical use of it, like that drawer application, etc. I would love to hear how you've used it outside of the engineered principles, because all I'm going to do is edify myself, and I'm going to push that knowledge forward to others. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page, where you can pull up not only all of the Ives products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website. as well as link to the full product catalog. I'm partial to Ives, and it's probably because I'm most familiar with their part numbers and their items. They have been a provider of trim and auxiliary hardware for several decades. They're a name that's trusted, recognizable, accepted in the industry. I particularly like them, not really for their touch latches. Those are nice. They've been around forever, and I've sold bushel loads of them. I like Ives for their pivots. Their full-size pivots, whether it be aluminum, wood, or steel doors, or stainless for that matter, because their approach to their installation instructions is simple and straightforward. There have been a couple of instances, this template is one of them, and then there's another template, and I forget what the hardware was. It may have been a pivot, that when you really put the tape measure on all the pieces, it didn't all add up. And what you need to do before you install something is you really need to go over the template, and if you're new to it the first time, do a reality check. Make sure everything adds up before you prep or drill anything to avoid a problem, because sometimes a subconscious interpretation of the template leads to a problem, when what you have to have is a literal interpretation. They show the CL12 with the body not in the same plane as the stop, when what you need to do is literally interpret it 3/16 of an inch. I got to move 3/16. Anyway, let me know how you've used this stuff to your success and great advantage, I hope. Any questions on the CL12 or any other Ives product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.